pitch like your life depends on it, because it kind of does. I was introduced as a person who helps startups, but actually this message is for every one of you. It's not just for startups. We all should learn how to pitch. You know, there were 3 stories in the history of the humankind worth mentioning. One was the Immaculate Conception, the birth, the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ Superstar. The second one was the birth, rise to fame, of one illegitimate child in Argentina called Evita Peron. And the third were the adventures of one fish, aquarium fish called Nemo. No, I'm just kidding. There was one more story. The story of this conference that was once mentioned here by Mara from the US Department of State. How this conference came about. It was a perfect story. No, I'm kidding again. There are hundreds of thousands of other stories. Your stories that you should know how to tell. And don't get discouraged by the success of Jesus Christ Superstar. He got Bible covered there. You got your ways of interactions, that you write your stories daily. And every day where I meet people, I rehearse my pitch and I optimize it. I try to make it better in the very form the IT people do it, by tweaking it and by removing the code smells. To sell is human. And make sure that your pitch sells not only your product, your idea, but you, because that's how we operate. We buy people. And by selling, I do not necessarily mean making money on this. But by selling, I mean spreading, inspiring, and making people believe that what you do is interesting. And I'm saying this because back where I come from, selling is regarded as something filthy and bad. I was born and raised in Poland, where being poor and humble is considered a virtue. And this is interesting because I observe it every time in Central and Eastern Europe. We kind of like find it awkward to talk about ourselves and our projects. So when this awkward question comes, so what do? People pause and try to tell something, and then they end up telling, well, I'm a marketing specialist. Yeah, like kind of million people. It's not selling yourself. And by selling again, I mean making the information interesting. It is interesting that the theory of pitch is very easy to understand. It's all about crafting a simple narrative and selling it in an engaging way. That's theory. Because what does simple mean? And what does narrative mean? And what does engaging mean? This would sound like some bullshit kind of advice from a person who says, craft stories and make them engaging. But I'm telling you that there is a science to a perfect pitch, and that science is rooted in cognitive psychology, neuroscience, and how this beautiful machine you have up here, yes, everyone, even if you doubt sometimes people, yes, that's the brain. Paris Hilton has one, go figure. So this thing not only helps you craft your narrative, but it helps people absorb your narrative. So it's best way to learn how it operates to make things easier, to make things better. So, in short, tell stories. But again, storytelling is such a cliche word that, you know, if someone tells you, use story in your pitch, smack them on the face right away, because that's not an advice, that's a cliche bullshit. Tell stories in a way that operate on a brain. And that is a fascinating thing and fascinating phenomenon. I'm Peter. I help companies and entrepreneurs hone their message, and I use cognitive science and neuroscience to make things better. I always put theory in practice, and I constantly learn to make things better. That should have taken, if someone measured me, less than 15 seconds. And that is one exercise that you should all do. The startups that worked with me yesterday know this exercise, and I'm going to share it with you. Because this exercise may not help save your life, but it will help you communicate better. First, you craft a simple line telling what you do. And obviously it's easier, and it was easier back in the times when you were either a carpenter or a farmer, because there you wouldn't have to explain what you do. But if your startup is not about being a carpenter or a farmer, there you need to tell people what is it that you do. That is why I say I'll help companies and entrepreneurs hone their message. Then I double check if they understand the word hone. Do you know the word hone? Yes, see? But it's a double check. And if you did not know the word hone, it was not you who were to blame, but me. Because if you use words that your audience, that your target audience does not understand, it is not them to blame, but you. Of course you can educate them, but in a first contact conversation there is no time to explain, oh, by the way, do you know what hone means? So make sure you know that you do not overuse jargon and those horrible phrases like the bullshit marketing bingo that I heard all the time. Innovative solutions, first to market, leverage. Oh God, no. So, getting back to my exercise. First you craft the headline. I help companies hone their message. That should not be longer than 140 characters with spaces. People from media and those who type, they know that there is a word count with spaces. Then you add 3 supporting messages. What does it mean, a supporting message? The ones that distinguish you from the others. Because trust me, there are other people who help companies hone their message. So that would not be enough fun just to tell them. That's why I use those 3 supporting messages. One is cognitive psychology and neuroscience. And trust me, whenever I say neuroscience, people just, that's interesting. So find something that it makes it interesting and your approach different. Because if a startup comes to me and says, oh, we are creating a social network. Yeah, go figure. That's unusual, creating a social network in the 21st century. So it has to be special. The second part tells about how I operate, always testing theory in practice. Make that about that. And the third one is about constant learning and constant education. It's just adding a little bit of a human touch to myself, not to show that I'm a narcissistic asshole who knows everything. I do not know everything. So, 3 supporting messages to a main headline, and that's the thing. And of course, doesn't necessarily have to be part of a startup pitch, but whenever you're in a social venue like this, and someone comes up and asks you, what do you do? Then you say that thing, and you test it. I've tested it all the time. People who talk to me know what I do it. And I test it, and now I know, okay, neuroscience is the thing that I should always mention. But one thing is true about the things that I've said. They are all true. Because in pitch, you should not lie. You should not make promises that are not true. So, try this exercise for yourself. Try it with me after I finish, if you still want to talk to me. Time is of essence. And again, that's kind of a bullshit advice to give everyone, but you know, the attention span that you have is my greatest enemy right now. And the attention span that we have now, as measured by Microsoft, I don't know why those guys measured it, it's now diminished from 12 seconds in 2005 to 6 seconds in 2014. An aquarium golden fish can beat us with attention spans. So people will not follow what is too difficult. People will not follow what is too much of a cliche. And if someone comes to me and says, oh, we've created this first-to-market innovative solution, I hear nothing but a gulp of meaningless words. So time is important when pitching, so better come prepared, even with this little exercise that I just shared with you. Very often we act like French farmers. Are there any French farmers here? Sorry, I mean, I did not want to intend. My intention was not to offend any of the French farmers, but do you know how pâté foie gras is made? You know? It's kind of like it's a delicacy made from fattened liver. And they ram the food into the goose so that they got a fat liver. It does not help the nutrition, it's not healthy for the goose, and of course, it's only for the taste of it. So that the animal does not throw up, they have this brass ring around the neck. Why do we act like French farmers? Because very often when we communicate our products on our websites, in a pitch, everywhere else, we ram the information to the heads of the people. We just tell them everything. It does not help with understanding, it does not help with the nutrition of the brain. It only makes them sick. Or it makes them go onto Instagram, on Snapchat, or Facebook, or Twitter, or email, or anything else, just not to listen to this Armageddon, this bedlam of information. So do not act like those French farmers. What I did, oh, that's better. That's, well, okay, that's a slide. That's a mistake. See? When you make a mistake, don't worry about admitting it during a pitch. This slide was supposed to be when I was talking about the geese, obviously, because geese are not sheep. What I just did is I told you a story of French farmers. I hope I made it kind of a visual story. And I remember when I once told this story, because this is a story I tell every time to show how information works, I saw one girl who was almost screaming with disgust. And I knew I did it well. Because if you see an emotional response to your story, that means that the cortisol levels in your audience are rising, and that's good. You know why? Because cortisol is one of the hormones that helps keep attention. So, use emotions. And telling a story helps understand difficult concepts. If I just told you that the problem with innovation is that we make too much information and try to put it in a limited time, you would not envision it so well. So I used the French farmer's story. What is important is the attention. And there is only one way, as cognitive psychology says, to catch our attention is by using emotions and models based on simple information. How much is 2 plus 2? Oh, thank God, you knew. And that's why information should be presented in that way. How much is 16 times 27? Oh, you're doing the math. Very rarely anyone bothers to do the math. So if you're presenting your idea in a form of 16 times 27, people will rarely pay attention and bother to understand how much it is. They will not, because they've got other things to do. And then there is this cognitive load theory. You know, a cognitive load theory is based on the fact that we absorb information in a certain way. So to get information spread, you need to follow the natural cognitive patterns, meaning the way the brain operates, the architecture. Starting with a bigger context, starting with catching the attention, and then going into the details. How does that translate to a pitch? Never ever start with your solution. Because if a startup starts and comes, okay, so I've made this app, and then I say, frankly, my dear, nobody gives a crap about your app. Because you have not introduced the context. You have not made a common ground for people to understand what we will be talking about. And if it's just an app, then for some people, why should they care about an app? I mean, do you care about all the apps that are on App Store or Google Play? Presumably not. And then there's memory, okay? Because at that very moment, someone in the audience or someone you talk to at the conference might not be the investor or might not follow your idea, but if they memorize it and they think, oh, I've met this guy, and I think someone should meet that guy, that's about memorizing startups. And I listen to approximately 400 pitches every year. So if I remember 40 of them, they've made a good job of 10% retention. And then those startups are lucky because if I talk to somebody who might need their idea or to investor, they just get connected. Those who have not managed to get into my long-term memory are not good. But memory is also a tricky thing because before things go into the long-term memory, they first need to go to the short-term memory. And guess what? In our short-term memory, we can only collect from 3 to 4 elements, some of us 4. So when you talk about things, use them in threefold. When you talk about problem, threefold problem. When you talk about solution or main features, 3 main features. Because people will not remember 13 main features. And I know how excited people who create startups are about their product. They know everything, and they are under the curse of knowledge. They know everything, and I have no idea what they are talking about. And they are talking about the features, and this and that, and we can use this and that. And what happens? I don't remember everything. I don't remember anything. So, it's better to use 3. 3 is always better than 4. I mean, there were 3 little pigs, 3 musketeers. There is even Holy Trinity. There is no 4 little pigs, you know? So what happens? Why do we fail? Well, there is a reason. In presentations, there is a PowerPoint curse. Yesterday, if I've exercised it with the startups here, they all came with certain ideas, and they left with clear slides. Why? Because the PowerPoint curse, well, that's a difficult word to say. A PowerPoint curse is when you hear the word, you have to give a presentation, you open the PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever you have, and you start, putting things there. That's not the way to go. If you are saying the same things as your slides are saying, one of you could go home. And I know it's difficult, because it would be so much easier just to stand here, oh, not here, there's not enough, and just read that. But, again, the cognitive process says, if the person is reading what you're saying, 28% of information is lost, is less effective, actually. The same goes for watching a movie and trying to listen to Ben Affleck in English, being dubbed in Russian, and underline in Romanian or whatever. That's difficult. I tried that yesterday night. My brain was brainwashed. This guy, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's my idol. 2,300 years ago, he made the communication easier. He had no fMRI that I use for my research. He had no idea how brain operates, but he puts a very simple scheme of how things should go. First, the intro, where you paint a big context, the big idea, the main thought. What are we going to be talking about? Then you dwell into the problem. Because if you have a solution, then you better have the problem to talk about. And the problem could be a threefold. Then, after you introduce the problem that I referred to as a hell is real part, you present the solution. And sometimes you can present kind of solution, and that's the way to diss your competition. Just to say, okay, yes, I know. There is a solution for that, but be better, use my solution. And what he knew, we know now. But every story has to have 4 elements. And these are, yeah, see? You got me there. You got me there. This one is for those of you who can keep 4 elements in your short-term memory. And by that, I'm obviously trying to flirt with you. And flirting is also a way of pitching. I mean, you're selling yourself, you're selling your idea. You are vulnerable because you are being judged, or maybe you are being frowned upon. And maybe the investor will say, I don't give a shit. Don't waste my time. So you will be vulnerable at those times, and I was vulnerable at this time. Before I started here, my heart was beating. And I do it for a living. Why was it beating? Because there's always a social interaction. So come prepared and be likable, okay? The wonderful speech before me mentioned that in the area of brand. Be likable, be interesting, and make the audience part of your pitch. Make the investor part of your pitch. That's one of the best selling techniques. Sooner or later they realize, oh my God, I've just wanted to say that. Yeah, because I listened to you. I'm kind of a narcissistic asshole, and every now and then I like to talk about myself. But during this conference I practiced, and it hurt, the act of listening. That's another exercise that you should do. Every time someone talks, don't finish their sentences. When they stop, pause for 3 to 5 seconds, and then start talking. You will see how it makes the difference. It really does. So those 4 elements make a good story. There's a hero, you know, living somewhere, like an IT person or an entrepreneur who lives in, well, I don't know, Shire. He's a kind of a hobbit, and then he gets a call for adventure. Oh my God, the world needs you to change it. And then a bunch of other people come along, you know, like dwarves and beautiful elves and other people, and mentors in the form of Gandalf, you know. And then there's the struggle, okay, because making a startup is never easy. If it was, every startup was a success, and it's not. And then there is a resolution. You save the world as it is, and you go back to Shire. That's the element of a good story. That's the element of the good pitch. There is no secret art to it. There is just one skill that needs to be practiced, and I hope that from today on you will be practicing it every day in every form of human interaction. So thank you very much. My website is there. I always say that I'm an arrogant asshole. And I say, I don't have a business card. I have a website. Bye.